Let's Go UW says, so prior to the Minka trade, I'd be confident in dismissing these TJ trade rumors. But now, I'm not sure. The latest one is TJ Watt for Nolan Smith. Shout out to Let's Go UW. Shout out to Let's Go UW. We are very similar with that approach, man, with that thinking. Yes, there was a time where when I saw these same trade rumors, even I think it was maybe when the contract dispute first came up and TJ potentially not showing up to minicamp, we were all just kind of like, yeah, whatever, man. TJ's not the guy who's going to get traded. It's not happening. But after this Minka trade, man, after the GP trade, I'm looking at TJ and I'm just like, bro, be careful, man. Like, if the intent is to just maximize the profit and you don't care where it happens, yeah, keep pushing, all right? Because you'll get the money, but you probably won't get it here. But it's like, yo, if you want to actually be here for the long call, just maybe pause for the calls, take a reassess, because they shipping people up out of this thing, man. And I just don't know right now, man, because there is, you know, when you're having these conversations, especially with the way that they moved on from Minka now, there is a case where you could make it where you're like, you know, do you want to pay TJ, who's, like we said, 30 plus, pay him $41-42 million per year going forward, while we're also playing the game of how, you know, does that age out as he gets older with the bigger contract? Does the production still stay where it's at? Are we worried about health, availability, things, etc., right? Which we probably aren't as a whole, but those are things you have to consider. Versus the alternative, which is, how many players could you get for $42 million? We said Jalen Ramsey's $26 million a year, right? And that's with the pay increase. Jonnu Smith is $12 million a year. That's with the pay increase. Jonnu's a Pro Bowler. Jalen's Pro Bowler, all pro, all world type of player. So you just start having those type of internal conversations. And I think that that's the part that, after seeing them move on from Minka, a player that we would all have said a week ago, or 2 days ago, untouchable, right? We would have said Cam, TJ, Minka are the untouchables. And then from there, you know, it's all right, DK, because we just traded for him and we just gave him the new contract. But that's the thing. When I'm looking at TJ right now, I do feel a little bit more concerned about his long-term Steeler tenure, you know, going forward because of how they moved on. Minka isn't just a great player. Minka is one of those heart and soul leaders of the team, like represent the organization type of guys. When you move on from that, and not because he's washed either. You're moving on from him in his prime. You're like, bro, that's a statement, man. You could be saying that you're done trying to go the way of, you know, star dominant players. And we want to do, let me get 3 of these players. Let me get 3 really good players versus 1 great player. And maybe my 3 really good players can give me more of the consistency, or, hey, man, if he's a little bit off, that guy's going to be on. If that guy's off, these 2 guys are on, and vice versa. Versus when it's all lumped into just that one player, you're like, man, if he gets hurt, it doesn't matter why he got hurt. The issue is he's not there. If he has a bad game, it doesn't matter that they're, you know, putting all this attention on him. It's like, yo, we're so, you know, dependent on that one guy making these type of heroic performances that when we don't get that, you feel it. And it makes the defense feel strained at times. And we would talk about that with Minka, and we say, yeah, we want to get Minka back to getting the Minka stuff, right? But these are some of the things that you have to consider when you're talking about paying a guy $40+ million. So that's the part where, when I look at the Nolan Smith elements, you look at Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith is a high-end, I want to say he was the first-round draft pick out of Georgia, came out, was that 2 years ago? We know he has elite burst off the edge, man, strength. He's a Georgia freaking football player, bro. You know what they are. That's little NFL over there, all right? They all come out NFL ready, all right? So, yeah, you feel like you could bring him in, and could he provide you with pass rushing production? Yes. If you had a combination of Nolan Smith, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, and obviously Jack Sawyer, you don't feel as great because you don't have TJ Watt, but you still feel like I have multiple capable players that I can get after you with, along with a lot of people have complained about the lack of blitzing. You don't blitz when you got a $42 million edge rusher. You let that 42 or, $30+ million edge rusher go to work every single play. Well, man, if you're switching from that model and now we're talking Alex Heisman being the highest paid edge rusher, yeah, you're going to do a lot more of the blitz and you'll get back to a lot more of that Blitzburg where even, I think of the Vince Williams, Mike Hilton time frames, right? Where we're sending them from all over the place. Like you'll get back to more of that versus where we currently are where it's, play coverage, let the front four rush. For some people, they prefer that. I mean, we've had multiple talks about that, right? Man, why we don't blitz more? We don't blitz more. And that was the conversation. That was the premise behind it because that's where your money is. You want the money to be in the playmakers and you want the playmakers to make plays in these games. But there is situations where, yes, because, Minka playing middle field safety, you can do certain things to remove him from the game, right? TJ predominantly only stand on the left side when he rushes. Yeah, there are certain things that teams are able to do that can, not take him out the game, but almost make him a non-factor on that day. These are all the different things that you have to consider when you're talking about going forward with a TJ Watt new contract versus trading TJ Watt. Because the thing is this, if you trade TJ Watt for Nolan Smith, you're not just getting Nolan Smith, you're going to get Nolan Smith and picks or Nolan Smith and another player because of the weight of who TJ Watt is. Now, granted, we know we won't be able to maximize the trade just because you still got to get TJ a new contract. So that gets taken into account. But TJ for sure would generate a high-end player plus pick. So when I look at Nolan Smith, it would be Nolan Smith, and I can see them even throwing in a third-round pick with it, man. I know Pride would want it to be higher than that because we're like, it was TJ, but you got to remember, he's 30 plus. You need to still pay him 40 plus. These are the things that, teams are going to have to take into account. And I think that that's why we won't necessarily be able to get a crazy high-end pick. But a Nolan Smith is a player that you can inject into your roster right now, and he will be able to give you production. He will be able to be a part of it. And I think that's why, there is even conversation, and that's even why I'm entertaining it. Trust me, man, that if this was a week ago, I've been with you. Man, why are we not even about to waste our time on it? But you see how the Steelers have been moving this offseason. They have moved on from George Pickens and Minka Fitzpatrick, bro. TJ is in the middle of a dispute where he didn't even show up for minicamp, man. We don't care who's right or wrong in it because I like both parties taking the stance they're taking. But it's like, man, it can get real weird really quickly, man. And this is that time frame. If you're going to make a move, you do it before training camp starts, right? That's the thought process with this, man. Shoot, not even from a trade element. Heck, if you did move on from TJ Wright, say you did trade, you don't have to necessarily go pass rusher because there's a Zadarius Smith that's a free agent right now. Zadarius Smith is a high-end double-digit sack type of dude anyways. You could go pick that up off of the street right now. And now whatever you traded TJ for, if it was a edge rusher, heck, maybe you want a safety. Maybe you want to go strictly, I want a safety to replace the Minka Fitzpatrick loss. You could do that and sign Zadarius Smith if you needed to. Like, there are still options about how you could do it. Me personally, I don't want TJ to go anywhere. I want TJ to be here. I want him to be a one jersey guy the whole time. But I feel like this is where it could potentially get weird just based off of how Steelers have been moving, how they've been acting, man. But we will see with that one, man. But shout out to Let's Go UW, man. Shout out to Let's Go UW.